What's happening, financial coaches? Peter here. I wanted to just talk to you off the cuff today about the model flexibility of your business because this is something I've been seeing a lot and I've been talking to a lot of people. And I tell you what, um, in full disclosure, I don't charge in packages. You want my time, you get charged for it. And if you don't get charged. And what I love about that, I've talked about in previous videos, is that I try to earn the next session, if it's appropriate, every time. I don't rest on the laurels and say, hey, you've got another session coming up, because I think that kind of puts me in cruise control. It also makes people force, themselves into the next session. It also sometimes kind of creates this behavior where you're throttling back, you're holding off stuff until the next session. And I really want to try to make every session as chock full of helpful, actionable, valuable information as I possibly can. And if that means that we hit everything that we probably need to hit and there's no next session, that's fine. I'm trying to help my participants move as quickly as possible through their financial journey, and be as efficacious as possible. I just heard someone, I think Sean Kennel used the word efficacious, and I wasn't even sure if it was a real but I loved it. I loved it. It's like apologize. I hate saying apologize. I like apologize. It sounds so much more visual. Apologize. Anyway, I digress a little bit. But the other problem is that the models tend to force fit people into your model, right? By definition, for example, a very common one is, hey, pay me $1,000 and you'll get 3 sessions, one a month for the next 3 months, or whatever it is, $2,000, or $450 maybe if you're trying to get paid by the hour. Regardless, right? So a lot of people will sell packages and they will pre-program when the sessions are going to be. Now, the problem with this, and the question I would ask, is that model flexible, right? And some might be, well, hey, if you need some extra help, we'll meet every week for 3 weeks instead of every month for 3 months, right? So some people will probably flex to that, but isn't it important to figure out what the client needs before we force them into something? Now, you could argue, hey, I'm only going for a certain demographic, I'm only going for a certain type or a target client here. You can, and if they really fit that target niche really well, then maybe this is going to work for you. But I'm going to give you some examples here. And I'm going to genericize it as I always do. But I was meeting with Jane, and the first session with Jane was one that was very typical of the time for me, when I started financial coaching, is that it was all about immediate problems, right? There was not a motivation problem because Jane was in a bad spot. Jane, over the years, had been overspending, which had led to credit card debt. That credit card debt had ballooned. That credit card was now maxed out. The credit card minimum payment was more than her budget could handle. And so her lights had recently got shut off. So she just got her lights back on, but now she can't make the minimum payment on her credit card. So she has no room for the credit. She has no credit limit to buy anything. On top of that, all the cash that she can send to the credit card just to make as much of the minimum payment she can make leaves her with nothing. So she can't even put food on the table this week. I mean, literally food on the table. I mean, this was the problem. So on a Thursday, she was calling me because, she had charged the last amount of money that she could on the credit card because she had made a payment that had brought down on the minimum, but now she was maxed out again. And she was wondering how she was going to eat this weekend just after getting her lights turned back on. Okay. So this is an immediate problem. Now, the issue for me is that we have some things that we need to work on right away. And she's open to these, right? And so we go into more of a financial counselor role than a coaching role, to be really honest. But what I would have a problem with is if I were putting her into a package where it was once a month or even once a week, this was not going to be the appropriate solution for her because she did not have problems that could wait a week or a month, right? She had problems that needed to be addressed today, tomorrow, the next day, next week. And so what we did is on Thursday, we talked about her calling the credit card company and talking about what number she calls and who to ask for and the supervisor and explaining your situation and what to disclose and what not to disclose unless it was asked, and right, and for interest rate help or a payment plan or whatever it might be, or extending the credit. So we talked about this, and that's what she was going to do. We also talked about, hey, then we don't have the time right now, but you are obviously going to have to feed yourself this weekend. So let's talk about when you get paid. Do you have cash? Do you have any other resources? Can we put something up for sale right now? Whatever it might be. We're just talking through ideas because I can't say, oh, you can't eat this weekend. How about we meet the same time next month and figure out a plan for that, right? So what we did was she was going to call the credit card company. This was the immediate problem. And this was going to now drive what we would talk about on Friday, if that makes sense, right? So she was able to get an interest rate reduction. She was able to get a little more credit. This is not necessarily a solution, but the ideal solutions are great if you have the time and bandwidth to go after and utilize the ideal solution. But if you are in a real pickle, I would rather you put $20 on your credit card than not eat for 3 days, if that makes sense, right? So she was able to do that. And she didn't get everything we had hoped for, but she did get a little bit of relief. And credit card companies do, despite what a lot of people say, when you get someone who is worked there a while, they've seen it all. And I can tell you, as someone who has done customer service as a side hustle for big companies, there are lots of unpublished plans and services and relief efforts that you can go to help out your customers. Most businesses don't want to lose customers. So she was able to get some, but what we needed to do was have another session on Friday to figure out what she was able to get. And that was going to help us figure out what solutions are on the table for Saturday, if that makes sense, right? So then Friday, we tried to figure out, okay, what do we have now as resources that are going to get you through Saturday and Sunday? And I didn't work Saturday and Sunday. I still don't. And then if she was able to get through that, right? So we were able to figure out a way to get her some cash. She was going to have to live on cash. So this meant, I think ultimately on Friday, and I'm kind of going off memory here, we were able to figure out how to get her $40 in cash on Friday, which meant there was not going to be any bar hopping or pub crawling or movie theaters or any of that this weekend. It was going to be a very Spartan weekend, but that $40 was going to be enough to get her next 6 meals. And then we were going to meet on Monday again to figure out how she got through that and how it felt, because now we actually have some other things that I'm thinking about. Like, now you've kind of experienced what it is to live a little bit Spartan, maybe a little bit more appropriately here to kind of dig us out of this hole. And so we can kind of talk about that. So now we can kind of get out of the triage of the immediate problems. And we have opened up ourselves to kind of go into more of the behavioral and the coaching things, and right, and the long-term stuff. And so we had 3 sessions, a Thursday, a Friday, and a Monday, right, within 5 days. And then that following week, we kind of redeployed the same tactics to get her through the rest of the week. So then we talked a week later, and ultimately I had 7 sessions with her that spanned maybe about 4 or 5 months, but it was very front heavy that first week or 10 days. And so my question is, if you're selling a package, does that allow you to really help? Does it allow you to flex to the people that might not have a need that perfectly fits your package, right? And it's okay if you need to flex it, right? If it's okay if maybe your package says, hey, 3 sessions over 3 months, I'm not opposed to that. And if you can sell it and it works for you, that's great. And if it helps give you some peace of mind, hey, that I have some income coming up, or, coaches coming in. And generally, I have found that a 3-session experience is pretty good for most people, but it's not good for everyone. And so how do you handle the exceptions? And in most cases, if you really are working with the people that are kind of financially vulnerable or impoverished or paycheck to paycheck, right? These may be more triage, more emergency, more action based, more counseling than coaching types of sessions. And so how are you prepared to handle those particular needs, the different needs than the ones that might be more about spending and controlling spending and right sizing the budget and getting ahead and setting up savings plans, right? That's kind of where a lot of coaches want to be. But there are a lot of people that are in need who are, as I say, stressed, to stable, to surplus, right? And so how do you help those people? And does your business, the way you've set it up, kind of remove you from the ability to really help those folks? So it's one of those things. Maybe you don't want to help those folks. Maybe that's not your demographic. Maybe you actually don't have the experience there. Maybe you can't connect with them. I'm not saying you always have to. But for me, I never really knew what was coming in. And especially when I was starting, it was really about seeing, am I going to work with people that are only in trouble? And it's kind of evolved, right? I think some of my best value now are for different types of clients. But I think I can add a lot of value, right, to some of those people. So I don't turn them down. And because it's just a pay as you use model for me, I think it is the ultimate in flexibility. Now, I'm not telling you to change your business model. And if you're advertising something and you're getting some traction with it and it's working for you, then great. But you might want to just think about, how would I handle something that came in that was kind of outside of my typical client, or how do I handle maybe an audience or a target market that might be a really good feeder for my core business as well. So, just things to think about. But, I really like doing some of those sometimes, because I'll tell you what, at the end of it, Jane was just thrilled. I mean, 4 or 5 months later, it was very funny because I was talking to her about just the mentality difference that she had. Right. And we just kind of talked about what she'd accomplished. And I think the idea that people can accomplish in a few weeks some extraordinary things, and then give them a few months, they will even feel how extraordinary it is. So for people to say, listen, I don't feel like a drag on my family. I feel like I am contributing. I feel like I am being rewarded. I feel like I have control. I feel like I am stress free for the first time in my life. Those are the things that I think we are all hoping to get. And some of those will probably, and many of them will probably be the ones that are working from the lowest point in their life, right? They're going to feel the biggest value. So, it can be very, very rewarding to do that. So is your model flexible? Model of flexible, modelable. Trying to think, is there a way to copyright a single term for it? But probably not. But is your model flexible? That's all I'm asking. That's it for today. See you later.